Broadcasting from the KMF Collective Studio, it's time for the Keep Moving Forward podcast. Join us every week as we dive into the stories of remarkable current and former athletes that have transitioned into the real world. Now here's your host, Katie Galley.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the 215th episode of the Keep Moving Forward podcast. I'm your host, Katie Galley. Today in the KMF Collective Studio, I have with me certified PT Ray Law. How are you doing, Ray?
Not too bad. How about you?
I am doing awesome. Thank you so much for stopping by to share your story with us today.
Not a problem. I look forward to it.
Yeah, me too. So Ray, just to kind of get the ball rolling, I wonder, where did you grow up and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
I grew up in Superior, Wisconsin. It's in northern Wisconsin, right on the tip of Lake Superior where it kind of comes into a point.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up, both my parents were super, super into fitness. My mom did 150-mile bike rides in the summer, the MS 150. And my dad was in law enforcement, and he had a gym in our basement. So, I grew up, and he ran marathons, and, he was always lifting and stuff like that. And so, I had a weight set when I was, 3 years old. So it's kind of been something I've always done. Grew up playing football, baseball, hockey, ran track, all that. Always super active. It was just kind of what was expected. My dad was an assistant high school football coach. So, athletics was a huge, huge part of my childhood, just as fitness was as well.
Yeah, and I mean, that makes sense, having it kind of shaped by your parents specifically, who were so into it, and then having your dad, especially as a an assistant high school football coach. And then, so for you, Ray, was it really just overall fitness that shaped you, your growing up, or did you really take a liking to one sport in particular and go all in with that?
Oh, yeah. Football was always my number one passion, and it was, I'm a little on the shorter side for a football player. I'm about 5'7", 5'8". So I always had to try to find an extra edge, and I found, going into 8th, 9th grade, the harder I worked in the weight room, the better I was on the football field, and stood out because, not a lot of, 8th and 9th graders are into lifting weights, and I saw how it, would give me an edge on the field, and, in other areas of life too, in hockey it helped, and track it helped. So the weight room is where, I found the passion for fitness and saw how it could, help me in other areas.
Yeah, and I think that's a really cool realization to have at such a young age, to see that weightlifting and the certain aspects of overall fitness really lend themselves to being a better athlete overall. So whether, like you said, whether it be on the football field or on the ice rink, whatever that is, it just, that helps kind of guide your athletic experience. And so then, Ray, looking into high school and then beyond, did you have aspirations to continue your football career at the collegiate level or even further than that?
My freshman year, first semester, I didn't have, any goals of playing college football. And then after my first semester, I was like, God, I miss it. So I reached out to a couple coaches who had recruited me, in my high school, playing days. And one school was like, yeah, come on down, no promises. So I, sight unseen, moved to a small town in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, called University of Wisconsin-Platteville, and went there, was, part of the spring practice season, and then, was part of fall camp, and then about week 3, I got a pretty bad concussion, and that kind of delayed my progress. So I wasn't going to practice or play that year because of that, and then once that was kind of there, I was gone. I was like, okay, I just want to focus on school and get this done with. And so after sophomore year, fall semester, football was done for me.
Mm-hmm. And so having that happen, with an injury, I know, like you said, you came to that decision on your own, really wanting to focus in on school, but then too, a little bit kind of having your hand forced and deciding that you had to step away from football. How difficult was that transition for you from playing organized athletics up until that point in your life to then taking a big step back and just focusing all in on your academic career?
Well, I had a pity party that lasted about 6 months, and
Yeah.
it consisted of a lot of Domino's pizza and Brew City Ice,
Yeah.
which is like the worst beer in the history of the world. And I actually put on about like 45 pounds of not good weight in
Wow.
a very, very short amount of time because I didn't lift, I didn't do anything. I just like was like, I'm going to be a normal person, quote unquote, normal person, and just partied and ate pizza and went to bed at 3 and woke up at 9 and kind of did that for the next couple of months, maybe almost a year.
Wow. And so, Ray, I mean, you said they lasted for about a year then. So looking forward and looking back too, so what was it that really kind of pulled you out of that difficult period and helps you navigate that next transition of kind of just pulling you out of that dark place?
Well, that dark place lasted about 8 years, if I'm being completely honest.
Wow.
So that went from about, undergrad, through bouncing around a couple jobs I didn't like, then got into grad school. I was still, probably 60 pounds overweight in graduate school. My master's degree is in exercise physiology. So super overweight through grad school, super unhealthy. Lost a bunch of weight in the second semester there, like started to think I had my life on track, and then it just was like, everybody else. I lost the weight, put it back on, slowly, 5 pounds, don't notice 5 pounds, and then fast forward, I met my wife, it's 7 years ago, which is crazy to say. We dated, got married, and then about a month before, and this is kind of answering that question, a month before my daughter was born, I was like, I can't do this. And that was kind of like my aha moment, where it's like, you're going to be a dad, you need to pull your head out of your ass. And, for the next year, I didn't drink, we barely went out to eat. I went from around 242, 245 to about 190. And then, my daughter Sutton, with the help of my wife, that was really what motivated me to, like, quote unquote, fix myself.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And then, that's really what got me out of it was, you're going to be a dad. You need to focus on getting healthy and being a good person. And, that was kind of the turning point. It was literally probably a month to the day before she was born that I started to get my act together.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that. It's having that, obviously internally knowing that you wanted to have that lifestyle change, but then having the reality of I'm about to be a dad and being able to have that be that real catalyst and pushing you forward and kind of shifting that mentality. And so then, Ray, through all of this, and you said you were undergrad and then getting your master's degree in exercise physiology. This whole time along this own journey that you were having on the academic and your career side, were you already pursuing becoming a PT, or was that something that came along later? What were you doing as far as pursuing your academic career? What was the end goal or ultimate goal there?
So I was heavily involved in powerlifting, in USA powerlifting in Minnesota and a little bit nationally. And I was like, how can I make this a career? And I was like, I love sports. I love working out. So my original thought process was getting into strength and conditioning. I did an internship under Cal Dietz, who I think is probably one of the most brilliant people in the field at the University of Minnesota, right after graduate school the summer after. And then I had an opportunity to go out to the University of Southern California and work with the football program in the strength and conditioning realm. And, I was hesitant to go, and, Cal basically said, if you want to go in strength and conditioning, you need a big school on your resume. So I moved to LA and, got out there, got into it. And, the way life goes, just it wasn't the best thing for me at the time, just where my headspace was. So I moved back to Minnesota and got into personal training sales and a little bit of personal training. And, I've kind of been in that field ever since.
Yeah. And so when you initially thought that you wanted to, I mean, having that foot in the door with powerlifting and strength and conditioning, I guess you were just drawing back on falling in love with weightlifting and learning what all it can do back in your middle school, high school days. And so then did you have aspirations to be a coach at a collegiate level? What did you have different goals at that time? And then, like you said, you moved out to LA, realized it wasn't the right choice, so you came back. What did you see as the future for yourself then?
I had no clue.
Yeah.
Like, I had a couple people I went to grad school with that were in personal training sales in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and they're like, hey, like, you would be fantastic at this. Give it a shot and come back. And, I had success early on, and that kind of continued, and kind of that's what kept me in the field is, I enjoy helping people.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that's one of the things a lot of young personal trainers coming out of school don't understand is, you have to be able to sell your services to be successful in the field. And if you can't do it, you're not going to see success. And that's the only way you can help people.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And so then, Ray, as a certified personal trainer, so is that did you go through a certificate course? Was it on top of getting your master's degree in exercise physiology? How did you go about that process?
So I had at one point I had like 5 or 6 certifications, like USA weightlifting, a kettlebell cert, CSCS. All that stuff was done on my own, and just was like, okay, what tool do I need, and where's my gap in knowledge? And that's where the Olympic weightlifting and the kettlebell cert came in, because I knew how to do some things, but I wasn't the most proficient in those. So I just tried to find things that kind of filled in the gaps. And then later on, I got into reflexive performance reset, and just always kind of trying to find out where my gap is, and then find the cert or find who I need to talk to kind of try to fill in that gap.
Okay. And what is the reflexive performance reset? Is that just a type of certification in another area?
So the easiest way to describe it, is it's basically foam rolling for your central nervous system. Your body's designed to move and breathe, and if you can't do those two things, you're going to eventually die. So your body will develop compensation patterns to get those two things accomplished, breathing being number one and then moving number two. And those compensation patterns are usually what lead to injuries in athletes. So it's about removing the compensation pattern, and, instead of, just surviving, you can start to thrive, and it's a real big help, especially in the times that we're in right now with managing stress, with breathing and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess then it's more so than just looking at, I guess you can think about personal training in one light, but you are exploring all different avenues in ways that it could help in your personal training pursuit. So the all around way that you could help a person on their own journeys.
Correct. I mean, it's, majority of my clients I have now, for when they came in, they're limited to doing something because of pain. And for the general population, pain is usually what prevents people from even getting started. Like their feet hurt, their ankles hurt, their back hurts, and they can't, even walk to the end of the driveway to get the garbage can because, their lower back hurts when they do it and things like that. So if we can help with that, we can start to actually see real progress.
Mm-hmm. And so, Ray, with your clients, so do you have, as a personal trainer, is it that you go to a client's home? Do you have your own physical gym space that they come into? Do you work as a kind of a contractor for other gyms? How does it work being a certified personal trainer?
Actually, right now, in Minnesota, all our gyms are closed, so technically I'm furloughed. Yeah. But I do work for a big chain. Nationwide, it's Lifetime Fitness.
Okay.
So I'm an assistant department head for one of the locations here in the Twin Cities.
I gotcha. Okay. And so do you have aspirations? And I mean, I know obviously, like you said, right now, with everything going on in the world, this is kind of just a difficult time in this fitness space. But did you have aspirations to potentially open up your own space one day?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have an entrepreneur mindset. That's always been something that's in the back of my mind. And my dad's always been somebody to be like, hey, you know, what do you need to make this happen? And so we've had those conversations, and I understand the reality of that business where it's, very, very hard. I think it's like something like 8 out of 10 gyms close in the first 6 months of being open.
Man.
So that reality's there, and, is weighing the risk of, you have 2 kids under the age of 3, is that a risk you want to take? And that's something that's still, in the back of my mind.
Right. And I mean, that makes sense, weighing all of those different things. But then, too, I think being an athlete really lends itself to having that entrepreneurial mindset. I mean, striking out on your own and already having that discipline innately within you to, want to go out and have those dreams and those passions. And so then, Ray, I mean, too, right now, like you said, you're furloughed because of the coronavirus, everything going on. So for you, how are you navigating this time right now? Are you doing like online fitness classes? How are you just making your way through this difficult period?
Well, I'm looking at this as I'm taking one route where I'm like, okay, how can I improve myself the most during this time?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the route I'm taking. Minnesota's got a decent unemployment system, so I'm just trying to stay afloat with that. But I'm really using the time to try to improve myself as much as possible. I built hastily a home gym in my garage in about 36 hours with the help of my dad, because he still had the weight room in the basement. So driving about 5 hours round trip to get that stuff one night on a whim. Using this time to read a lot of podcasting, trying to expand, into different areas of like mindset training, to, see if there's something I'm, missing there, because I'm more of a, let's get this done, let's make the commitment, let's work on behavior changes. You said you're going to do something, now let's do it, and seeing, some people need a little bit of a softer touch. I'm more of a, let's punch you in the throat and then give you a hug instead of, just hugs all the time.
Yeah.
So seeing if there's something I can pick up in that realm, so I'm just really trying to use this time to improve myself. So when it comes back, eventually, whenever that is, that I'll be ready to fire on all cylinders and come back as a better professional.
Yeah, I love that. Trying to stay, like you said, obviously physically sharp, but really focusing on that mental aspect of it. Because I think especially right now, it could be so easy to become mentally derailed, to fall off your schedule and just let all external factors kind of creep in. And so, like you said, trying to have a schedule, a regimen of listening to podcasts and trying to develop that mindset then. So whenever that time comes, you're just always in that state of preparedness and ready to go.
Yeah, and I mean, it helps. My wife is really into fitness, so like, I'm using her as a guinea pig for like new programming, and she's all about that. So
yeah,
it's nice that I have that guinea pig at home where I can say, hey, we're gonna try this for 3 weeks and see what happens.
Well, that is great, having a willing participant and a teammate to help you really push you along. And so, Ray, right now, just kind of reflecting back and just in the time that you've been a personal trainer, is there a story or a specific client maybe that you trained or helped that really stands out to you over the years, that really serves as a reminder as to why you keep coming back and why now you are still so driven to stay in this space and just be mentally prepared for when you get to go back and train people again?
Yeah, it's actually before I started at Lifetime, and she was actually a remote client from California who was a family friend. She's, throughout her life, fluctuated, up 40 pounds, would lose 50, then up 60. And I think it was 3 years ago, she finally, she drew her line in the sand. 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, she drew her line in the sand and reached out to me. And, she went all in. Anything I asked her to do, she would do. Some pushback on some things, but then, in the first year, she lost, I think, 30 pounds. Completely changed her mindset. applied for promotions at work that she would have never done because she didn't have the confidence to do it. And then she got into running. She's done, half marathons, marathons. She did the Dopey Challenge at Disney, which is 5K on Thursday, 10K on Friday, half marathon on Saturday, and then a full marathon on Sunday. Wow. She did that. And, a couple summers ago, she was, my parents have this big family gathering, and she's considered family. She came from California to it, and we went for a run, and she'd never run a 5K under a half hour. And, we went out, and I basically forced her to sprint the last 3 blocks so she could get that, and ever since then, now that, 10-minute mile is like her easy pace. So, that she like totally changed her life, and, she started to impact other people's lives. So that's been super rewarding to see her now, using her success story to help inspire and motivate other people.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the coolest part, the ripple effect that you don't even know you're creating. It's you see this one person in front of you that you're helping and you're guiding through their own personal journeys because you've been there and you are able to draw on your own experiences. So you're able to help them in that real, authentic way. And then unknowingly, they're going to turn around and their own journey, their own personal obstacles that they overcome, that then will help inspire others. And so it's a really cool kind of that ripple effect that just occurs naturally.
No, absolutely. And, she's one of those people where I think now, like anything she wants to do, she just texted me the other day that she took a new opportunity at work that's going to be 10-hour days, 5 days a week. And she's like, I never would have done that, 3 years ago. So it's like, she's still doing things that she didn't think she would ever do.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And then it, inspiring further. So it's just that continual just encouragement, I guess, of things that you just going after new things like you did, walking through different doors of opportunity and seizing them when they come. And so, Ray, looking forward, I know right now you're furloughed and navigating this current season and really just trying to stay mentally prepared and tough and being ready to go back and get into personal training when Lifetime opens back up again. But for you looking forward, do you have what's next for you? Do you have something coming up on the horizon? Do you have like a next step, or is this time maybe reinvigorated that thought or invigorated that thought of maybe I want to start training people on my own? Do you have a next step for you?
Not really.
Yeah.
I did have, me and my wife have been talking since I've had, my poor dogs get walked probably 300 miles in the last 3 weeks.
Oh.
And like, I'll come home like with some new revelation, and there's some stuff we're talking about, that would be some pretty dramatic, career moves and things like that. But, as far on that side, like I know I'll always be in fitness. I just don't know on what level I'll always be doing it.
Yeah.
It is tough, when you're, training, people back to back 5 days a week. It's you're dealing with people, so you can't take an hour off, because people are giving you their hard-earned money to help them. So it's not like you get that, I can take this hour easy. So, that the grind of, training 30 hours a week is something I know I can't and don't really want to do for the rest of my life, but I know I will be in fitness for the rest of my working career. And then, as far as personally goes, last year I did a lot of big events that, required a lot of time for training. So I kind of told my wife, this year I wouldn't have anything crazy. But that's kind of went by the wayside since, this started. And I was like, we never thought things would be taken away from us like they are. Like, we thought, races would always be there, CrossFit competitions would always be there. And seeing that, those can be taken away, that's kind of changed my tune. And I'm looking at doing something, this fall, semi-crazy.
And are you going to unveil that soon, what you're going to do?
Well, I can talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
So last year I did a 50-mile trail run with a previous guest you had on's wife, Mike Fishik.
Yeah.
Me and his wife did Squamish 50, and he did the 50K. So this year, like this fall, I want to do a physique show, a half marathon, and a CrossFit competition. I want to hopefully get it done within 7 days of each other.
Wow.
So that's kind of what I'm shooting for. I found a show, I found a half marathon. Now it's trying to find a CrossFit competition that we can fit in there.
And why did you choose those 3 things specifically?
More so because there's a lot of people that don't think you can be an aerobic athlete and have a good physique. And that's a big part of it. And then, and the other thing is like just showing people like, hey, you don't have to train a certain way to do, have to do certain goals. Like if you don't like training like a bodybuilder, you don't necessarily have to, to reach that goal. And, it's okay to do aerobic work. You're not going to shrink and, be 140 pounds, just because you run 20 to 30 miles a week, and just kind of trying to hopefully break down some of those barriers and stereotypes of like, if you want to have muscle, you can't do cardio. And if you want to, be a good runner, you shouldn't lift that much and, have that much muscle.
Yeah, and that's really cool to kind of come up against it and buck those stereotypes by using yourself as that model of, okay, I'm going to do these 3 things within 7 days, and to show, to just prove this point.
Yep, and that's kind of and it sounds crazy, and like I can't imagine, being on poverty macros and training for a CrossFit competition or a run, and it just sounds like it's going to be really, really hard, and I kind of like that.
Yeah. That sounds awesome. That really does sound cool. And it does sound a little crazy, but I think that's the coolest part, is that you're just going to try and push your body to the limits and see what you can do.
Yep. If we were as fragile as some professional, that's probably my biggest pet peeve in the fitness space, is if we were as fragile as we sometimes make ourselves out to be, like people wouldn't be here today.
I like that.
Like our bodies are capable of doing a ton, and we don't give it enough credit.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so you get to push yourself to the limits, and then you get to prove it in a really big way. And I think a big part lends itself to what you're doing now. Focusing on the mental side of it, because it's that adage, I guess, that your mind gives up long before your body is able to, because you can keep going. It's just, are you going to decide to keep going?
Yeah, and it is a choice. I have a coach right now, and a couple months ago he made me do a workout that I thought like was going to crush my soul, and it was like the simplest thing ever. Like, put tape over your Garmin, headphones in with white noise, completely cover the treadmill screen, so like zero distractions, like complete blinders, like you were just like in your own headspace, like no feedback. So you had no idea how fast you're running, when the time was coming up. And that was probably the mentally hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Wow. And why did your coach put you through that? Was it just for a mental exercise?
Yeah, because to kind of see how people like respond to different like training variables, and I was having a panic attack like 3 minutes in. Because like I had no idea what was going on, and he said some people thrive in that environment where, I like feedback. I like, how much further do I have? How fast am I going? Can I go faster? Do I need to go slower? Like, where's my heart rate at? Like, I like getting that feedback, and it kind of calms me mentally to be like, okay, you're running an 8-minute mile and your heart rate's only at 145. You're doing good today. I like having that kind of feedback of like, where am I at? Do I have more? It's weird. I don't know. I can't really explain it.
Yeah. And so was the purpose of that drill, was it to see how long you could last running on the treadmill, or did he have he knew the set time or distance that you were going to run and you just had no idea?
No, he didn't know, because it was up to me to set my own speeds. So I just, would blindly increase, decrease. And it was more I should actually try to find it. I'll send you it after we get done talking of what the purpose of it was. And
Yeah.
like, I just tried to block that out of my mind as fast as humanly possible, because I told him, like, I would rather run, with a 40-pound pack on in 100-degree heat, and do that all day, and said you can't come home until you complete like 50 miles, than ever do that again for even 10 minutes. It was mentally the worst, hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Wow. And that's so interesting, because I guess I guess you're right, though. Some people might thrive in that kind of environment, but I guess I would imagine that a lot of people, most people would now, especially with all the technologies and everything that we have, we get to see the progress we're making, like right there on your wrist. You get to see it on the treadmill. I mean, just wanting to know exactly where you're at, knowing exactly the amount of time you have left, the distance you have left. So I bet that's just a challenging, odd thing to put yourself through.
Yeah, it was a trip.
Yeah, I bet. Well, Ray, I mean, you've led such an interesting life so far to date. I mean, with your athletic career, and then overcoming these incredible obstacles, and then you mentally deciding to push yourself and to come out on the other side stronger and better and faster, and then to now dedicating your life to helping people in return. So gathering or looking back on your own experiences and helping people in that way, and looking forward, knowing that, one, you're working on yourself in this difficult time, but then two, knowing that it's going to end, of course, and you're going to get back to helping those people like you were. Reflecting back and looking forward, I just have one final question, Ray, that I ask all of my interviewees. What do you want to be remembered for?
That's a tough one. And that's like a big thing I think I talk about, is I want my kids, more so than anybody, like to remember me as like a positive influence and good role model for others. And I think that's something, that most parents want to do, but is something I think a lot of parents struggle with, is I'm going to want this for you, but I don't want it for myself. Right? We want what's best for our kids, but we're not willing to do the work to, have the best things for ourselves. And I want, like, that's my big thing, is like, I want to show people, like, you can be a good parent, you can be a good spouse, and you can still take care of yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it's easy to be that selfless and give your everything you have to your kids, but then two, are you willing to pour into yourself in the same way? That's a really good kind of self-reflective thought.
And because I know the person who I was, and like, if I was able to go back, 10 years and meet myself, I would probably knock myself out cold. It's just, I like, with countless people, and you've talked to 215 people now who are, in various forms of the fields. And, the people who do take care of themselves, and quote unquote actually do love themselves and just don't stand in the mirror and lie to themselves, like, they usually treat people the best too. It's kind of what I've, been, like, going back to what I've been doing now, is paying attention to is, the people who actually, take care of themselves, try to better themselves, use opportunities for, self-improvement, whether it be reading, podcasting, taking an online class, working out, eating healthy, those are the people who truly can, look in the mirror and have that conversation and be like, yes, I do love myself, and this is why I'm doing these things. It's, self-love is taking care of yourself, physically, mentally, and spiritually, not just, standing in front of the mirror and lying to yourself and thinking that things are going to change because you're saying X, Y, Z every day, but you're not doing anything. I don't know if anybody ever knows this. I don't think I've ever said it out loud, but like, that's the conversation. It's like every day in the mirror when you're brushing your teeth, is the hardest person in the world to lie to is yourself, because it's a lie. Mm-hmm. And, like, that's kind of like my before bed gratitude practice is, did you do, things today to keep the boat moving forward, or, did we run out of gas?
Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest, check out the show notes at keepmovingforward.us. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter to stay up to date on all things coming out of the KMF Collective Studio. Always remember, you can beat the odds and go the distance if only you keep moving forward.